Hi Soapsters, welcome to the Queer Bull YouTube channel. I love Christmas, it's my favourite time of year, so I thought I'd start my channel with a Christmassy tutorial. If you're anything like me, you love making soap, and inevitably you end up with lots of bars of soap. Lots and lots and lots of bars of soap. Katie from Royalty Soaps made a great point in her Christmas series this year, and that was gifting soap that has a Christmas theme is great, but it's likely going to be used in January. What if there was a way to create a Christmas soap that uses your current hoard of soap bars but won't leave you with a Christmassy bar in your shower until February? In this tutorial, I'll show you how to pipe Christmas wreaths and garlands onto soap bars you already have. This technique is a medium skill technique and only requires a piping bag, so no piping tips are needed unless you have some. The tutorial uses cold processed soap, and before attempting it, please make sure you are aware and follow life safety procedures, and that you've made some cold processed soap a few times beforehand and you're comfortable with the methods that's required. Now, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and remember to click the bell icon so you get notifications when a new video is uploaded. And don't forget, keep all your pets and children out of your soap room or soap space whilst you're soaping. Anyway, without further ado, let's get soapy. So let's start by preparing our piping bags. We're going to use one with a tip, and this is number 4 round tip. It doesn't matter where you buy them from, you'll always get the same size with the same number in the round tips. Different companies use different numbers for non-round tips, but I'm actually going to show you how you can create a leaf shape with no tip whatsoever. So we place the tip on the end of the bag here, like that, and I'm going to move up about halfway up the piping tip, which means I'm going to snip the bag off round about there. And then if I open up the bag and slide the piping tip in, that's cut just enough off to mean that the piping tip is not actually going to fall out of the bag. And I'll show you that here now. There we go. See, just enough sticking out so you're not going to lose the tip. So there you go. Now, I'm just checking on the consistency here, and it's starting to firm up. It's getting to the point where we can start to get these into bags, I think. The green one is going to go into the non-piping tipped bag, and we're going to obviously do a leaf tip without a tip for that one. And the red is going to go into the other bag. So there are 2 ways to fill a piping bag. The first way is to take the bag and then roll the top down, and you want to roll it down at least halfway. Okay, what that means is you can then pop your hand in underneath the bag, and that you're going to basically use the edge of your fingers to scrape the soap off. So I'm going to lay this down because it's easier to actually scoop up when it's laid down. So you scoop up some of your frosting, you're going to put it into the bag, flip it over, and then scrape it off on your fingers. Okay, that just means you can get everything into the bag, nice and neat and tidy. Because I'm using such a little amount of frosting here, it's a little bit more complicated, but it's still relatively easy and mess free. So I'm just going to pop the rest of the red into the bag here. And once you've got all your frosting into the bag, you just roll the edge of the bag back up again. And that's your frosting in a bag. Clean, simple, easy. Now, there is a little tip I'm going to show you here. So if you've got frosting and it's kind of slid up the sides and you want to get it all nicely down into it, use a scraper. This is just a scraper for bread, but you can use the metal scrapers that you get. You can use a piece of plastic, a piece of acrylic, anything that's got a flat edge to it that's not going to break the bag. Lay it on a table, take your scraper and just scrape the bag to move all of the frosting down to the end. That'll remove any of the air bubbles, and it just means you've got a really nice frosting bag to be able to work with. Easy, simple, you're welcome. So for using the piping bags, you're just going to twist the top end so that it's not going to squirt back up and out, and then squeeze it just till you get that tip of soap coming out. Easy. Now, if you find that a bit of a faff and you want an easier way of getting piping soap into a piping bag, use a cup, the end of a bottle of oil that you've cleaned out. Just, again, roll the bag down at least halfway, pop it into the cup, and this allows you two hands then to basically spoon or slide or manipulate your piping frosting into the piping bag. Again, it depends on whether you've got hands free or whether you want to just kind of make your life a little bit easier. But both of these methods work very well and just leave you a nice clean up. So I'm just going to try and get the rest of this into the pot here. There we go. Waste not, want not soap is expensive, so we want to use as much as we can. And then we're going to roll this up. So again, what we're going to do, you can actually take the bag, and if you use the gravity by lifting it up and shaking it down like that, you're actually going to put all of the frosting into the tip and drive the air out. See? Another great tip there. These are all baking tips, so if you've not baked before, do some baking because it'll help with your piping. Again, scraping down, so we're going to scrape all that soap down. Waste not, want not. So it's a good way of using up your soap. Again, we're going to pinch this. Now, this technique will work on any bar of soap that you have to hand. This is a Sigalia, I think it's called Sigalia technique, which is where you basically blend in scraps of soap into a batch of oils, and you make your soap using the oils, but the shredded soap is already in there. So it means you can blend it with the stick blender and get a really nice technique. This is a piece of rebatched soap. So this is soap I've had. I've got all the kind of terrazzo stuff going on there. So any soap will work for this. And what you're going to do is take your soap and you're going to use this is a little glass ramekin I've got, and I'm just going to draw around this to give me the outline or the edge of where I'm going to pipe. Piping circles is difficult enough, so let's give ourselves a little bit of help here and draw around something. There we go. So we've now got a circle on there, but that's not going to be enough. What we want to do is give ourselves what's called a key. So we want to make the surface of the soap, which is quite hard, rough. So literally all I'm going to do is take my scribe tool here. This is a needle tool. And I'm going to just scribble along that line. So all I'm doing is I'm digging slightly into the soap to give it a key, to give it somewhere that the new soap can actually sit into, and it'll give it a little bit more solidity when it hits. So if ever you need to pipe onto a soap that's already been cured, you must get a key into the soap first of all. Okay. So we're going to just finish off our little bit of scribing here, a little bit of scribbling. And the other thing that's really important to note is soap will stick to itself in the presence of water. So if you want to then get a really good key and a good stick into your cured soap, we're going to use a tiny little bit of distilled water. Again, it must be distilled water, not just from the tap. So again, it's just all nice and clean and tidy. Okay, I'm going to use my little ramekin here to pop a little bit of water in. I keep them in these little kind of dispenser bottles, so I can just add a little squirt here and there. You don't need much. I'm going to take a paintbrush, and we're just going to paint a little ring of water onto where we've made that key. So just a little bit of water and paint on to that area with distilled water. There we go. So the water and the rough surface will give the piping somewhere to actually secure itself onto. So really good tips and tricks there for if you ever need to pipe onto soap or get soap to stick to soap. Water is the way forward. So that is our first one done. I'm actually going to just wet this one down as well. We're going to get this Nice and wet. I've already keyed this one before we started filming, so the keying has already been done. It's actually quite a rough bar as well. So a rebatched soap, they tend to be rougher, they tend to be a bit ugly. This is a nice way of sprucing them up. It doesn't have to be a Christmas theme, it could be a spring theme or a summer theme. Anyway, we're now going to create our leaf tip. And our leaf tip is basically... now I'm just going to check that this is a good consistency to... Yeah, I think we're good there. You can see that it's just starting to leave a few peaks in there. Good. So we're pretty good to go. Again, great thing with piping, and the thing that's going to be your friend with piping is patience. Just let your soap set up naturally and you will automatically get a nice piping consistency, but it takes a little time sometimes. Anywho, to get a leaf tip, I'm going to use a pair of scissors, and what you're going to do is you're going to actually cut towards the point each side. So rather than kind of cutting straight across or cutting into the bag, you're going to cut down towards the point on one side, like that. Flip it over and then cut down towards the point on the other side. And that is basically going to give you a leaf tip. Now, the smaller you make those cuts, the smaller the leaf will be. The bigger and the longer you make to make sure that it's actually going to work. Okay, so to make leaves, there is a motion you need to get as you're piping. And the motion you need to do is basically with the leaf tip flat against the surface. So I'm going to turn my hand as though it is the surface here. And you're going to make this wiggling motion. So you're going to go up and down. So as you make the leaf shape, you just wiggle it up and down. And actually sometimes just by squeezing, you'll get enough wiggle. But if you want some really nice texture, you basically wiggle your piping tip up and down to give you a tip and then pull away. So as you pull away, the piping will naturally make a point. Now, it wasn't quite coming out as I wanted. So we'll take another little snip and another little snip. So we're just making it bigger. Okay, let's give this another go on the back of the hand. And you can see how that's coming out nice. It's still coming out on one side. Let's just see if we've got a stickiness in there. And it looks like we might have. And one more go. Look. Hey, look. There we go. Leaf. Easy, simple. So, let's get to piping these wreaths in. So the technique you're going to use, if you think about this ring and you're going to work around, basically, if you think about how to do this, your first leaf is going to start in the middle and go straight down. You're going to go a little bit above it, and you're going to go to the right-hand side, then to the left-hand side, and back to the middle, and repeat that pattern. To the left, to the right, middle, to the left, to the right, and work around your guide, keeping that pattern going until you've completed an entire circuit of your wreath. So let's just speed this a little bit up so you can see it happen in a sped up time. So what you'll notice is that I'm not moving the piping bag to the wreath, I'm moving the soap around. Now here we're going to put in some red berries. Now the piping tip I think was a little bit big for what I needed, but we're going to make the best of it and hopefully make them look like baubles rather than some sort of genetically modified hollyberry. So what I'm doing here, if you happen to get a peak on the top of a round piping and you don't want that peak, if you take a little wetted brush and you just touch the top of the peak, it should knock it back down. It's a little bit like, again, royal icing. If you wet it and you dab it down, you should get rid of those peaks. But I will show you another technique. If you've put the wrong piping tip in and you want smaller looking beads, I'll show you a technique in a little bit to do that. So all we're doing here is piping on random beads so that it looks like a nice wreath. And then what I'm going to do now is make another kind of circuit with the green, but this time we're piping kind of over the top, and we're going to kind of get it over some of the berries and leave some of them sticking out. And it's not going to be like a full-on thing, but we're just, again, we're filling out the wreath here so that it looks like a nice full wreath with lots of kind of foliage and stuff like that going on it. So again, we'll speed this up so you can see it in next to no time. And I wish I could pipe this fast. After 3 minutes worth of piping, and I have done this before. So if you're going to do this sort of thing, you probably want to give yourself kind of like 5-10 minutes to pipe one of these initially, and as you keep doing them, we'll get faster. Right, bows. Now, when you pipe on a cake, and it's the very same that I've found with soap pipe frosting, is you kind of need to let the soap do its thing, and you can control it quite well. So if you allow the soap kind of come up above the surface, and then kind of fall into place rather than trying to pipe it into place, you get these lovely smoother lines than it being all kind of wiggly and wobbly. So my tip is to kind of do a little bit of practice and watch some baking tutorials, and then we do a little bit of a thicker line with a couple of bits on the end, and you get this lovely bow shape. So we're now going to pop a bow onto the bottom of our wreath. And again, we're just using the technique as we're lifting the piping bag up, we're allowing the piping to trail, and we're then going to pop it back down again. And if you'd like me to do a tutorial about how to do this with a far better close-up and a better angle so you can see the vertical lift and drop, I'm quite happy to do that. Leave a comment below this video, and if we get enough people wanting that, I will do a tutorial on how to pipe bows on soap. So we're going to do one more here, and this is basically doing a garland around the outside of a soap. Again, I've keyed it and popped some water on there, and I'm just going to pipe some slightly bigger leaves around the edge of this one, and do a little bit of writing as well. So again, I'll speed this up until we get to the writing section, and I'll see you there in a second. Okay, so before we get to the writing bit, I was just going to point out here is the technique for putting in slightly smaller rounds and nicer rounds if you have got the wrong piping tip or you don't have a small piping tip. All I'm doing is taking a pin tool and squeezing out a little bit of the icing onto the top of the pin tool and then placing that where I need it. Keeps it nice and round, you can control the size of it, and you can pop them in exactly where you want to have them. So nice little tip there for doing small rounds if you haven't got a small piping tip or you can't cut the end of your piping tip off small enough. And here we're just going to write a very simple Christmas message, ho, ho, ho. And again, this is using the same technique, or a very similar technique to how I did the bow, which is to basically allow the frosting the piping to touch the surface of the soap, draw it up a little bit and allow the piping to just lay on the surface rather than trying to get it in there and get it stuck in. So again, giving it a key, wetted it down and just allow the soap to lay where it needs to be. And then if you've got any bits that are sticking up, you push them back down again. And that's basically how you get piping on soap. Once again, if you like a tutorial on that one, let me know in the comments below. And there we have it, one finished wreath with our ho, ho, ho message. And there we have it, piped wreaths on bars of soap you already have, great Christmas presents, and the wonderful thing is, the wreaths wash off within a few washes and you're left with just a brilliant bar of soap. So it's great for those Christmas gifts that you don't want hanging around into February. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and share the video, and we'll see you again next time for some more soapy fun.